The inchworm is a warm-up exercise primarily focused on warming up your posterior chain. So focusing on warming up the backs of the ankles, calves, hamstrings, glutes, low back. It's also warming up the wrists and the shoulders and triceps and chest as well because of the support that your upper body is having to provide throughout that movement. Key setup for this. Make sure those feet are just inside of shoulder width, right next to each other. We're keeping those legs as straight as we can throughout this movement. So if you have the flexibility to keep those legs nice and straight as you hinge on over, reach down for the floor and walk out, great. If you do not have that flexibility, maybe you're a little tight in the low back, hamstrings, and glutes, just do your best to keep them as straight as possible. Remember, our goal is warming up and stretching out those muscle groups that are tight. So really focus on this one. Just don't go through the movement. Think about the movement and think about getting that stretch. Keeping those legs as straight as you can as you hinge on over. Setting those hands on down nice and close to the feet. Walking on out until you're in that push-up position to where there's a nice straight line between those heels all the way up to the head. Then initiating that movement back by pushing those hips up into the air. Walking those hands on in as you keep those legs as straight as you can. And then standing on up nice and tall at the top and repeating. Common mistakes made on this one. Not focusing on getting the stretch down the back of the legs. Instead, bending like you would in a squat, setting those hands on down, walking out, walking back into a squat, and standing up. You are not focusing on warming up the areas that this exercise is specifically designed to warm up. By doing that, make sure you're focusing on keeping your legs straight and getting that stretch in that posterior chain. Another big mistake on this one is not keeping the abs tight in that lower portion of that inchworm. So instead, setting those hands on down, as you walk out, those hips are collapsing on down like this throughout that movement. This is a cobra pose that you can use in yoga and is also involved in some of our warm-ups. However, in a typical inchworm, unless otherwise stated, it is not involved. You're going to be keeping those abs nice and tight as you reach that bottom portion of that inchworm. Again, another main key is not pushing the hips up as you inchworm back in. Instead, those hips are going straight back as you come back. So remember, focus on returning to that starting position by pushing your hips up into the air, inchworming back on in, and standing on up.